do I like dystopian fiction? Okay guys, I've been talking about that genre of books, of movies. I tend to enjoy dystopian fiction. Why? I've never actually had to think of the reason why, but a moment ago I sat through and thought through my thoughts around that genre. I think that the reason why I liked that genre is because it sort of shines the light on an alternative way of living, an alternative world. That's one. Because you tend to watch or read things that are not existing. Dystopian fiction shows you what can happen if things go a certain way. So it's actually possible. Those things are actually, well, I think they're kind of possible if certain things in the world continue, if some certain behaviors or certain trends continue, right? So that's one of the reasons why I like it, because it's not something that we're used to. Unlike romance, I enjoy reading romance and watching romance, but romance is, we live through romance every day. Boy meets girl, boy falls in love, girl falls in love, they're in love, then there's heartbreak, then they get back, or they have a family. That is literally what we live through. If you're not living through love, you're experiencing that, like, through people. It's not a foreign concept, right? Falling in love, it's something that happens all around us. What else? Action. Well, it happens. We watch movies where people are fighting, there is kidnapping, bad example, but yeah, those things already happen, right? So when you're reading through those storylines, what you're faced with is the creativity of the writer in working around things that are already happening, right? So nothing really surprises you. The plots may surprise you, however, it's still a possibility. Anyway, that's my roundabout way of saying that those genres are things that already probably existed, so it's just left for the author to be creative in those plots. Now, for dystopian, right, it's not already happening, and dystopian forces you to question yourself, right? So for instance, Scythe, right? Long and short, the book is about a world where you're all humans like us, you and I, but it's a world where they've been able to overcome mortality, meaning that human beings literally live forever, right? Human beings live forever. So what does that mean? It means that now there is pressure on the population because nobody is dying. Are people giving birth? Never really mentioned that in the book, right? But nobody is dying, and everybody is living to 1,000 years, 2,000 years. So they instituted a group called the Scythes, whose duty was to literally unalive people, right? They called it gleaning. Their duty was to glean people because obviously people would have to go. Like in the mortal age, we live, people go, and people come in, people go, and that's the cycle of life. But in a world where nobody is going, then there is, first of all, there is a strain on the population, there's a strain on resources, where people live, where people eat, like there's a strain on things, so people would have to go. And since they're not built to go, they had to have these Scythes who would glean people and get them away. So the thing I forgot to mention about Scythes is that the Scythes that were instituted, the body that was instituted to glean, it was not a criminal offense. So it was actually a way of life. Like the people of the world, in all the countries of the world, all understood that since they had successfully overcome mortality, there had to be a way of keeping the population in check. So the Scythes was a generally accepted thing. They were known in the society. They had their own robes, they had their own ring as well. They could grant you immunity. To grant you immunity, all you had to do was just to kiss their ring, and you have immunity for like a year. Immunity means that nobody could glean you. So people try to be as good to the Scythes as possible. You want the Scythes on your side. So with Scythe, right, there was this group of people, then there was this boy and this girl who were brought in as apprentice Scythe apprentices. they got to discover some things that were going on in there that were not supposed to be, and yeah, the book just follows their journey without giving much spoilers. So that's what it's about. So you may ask, what question could you possibly ask yourself reading that kind of book? There are a number of questions. So number one, how would a world where nobody goes, I mean, mortality is a thing of the past, how would that world be? Then secondly, in that book, there's something called turning the corner, right? So instead of aging, people can age normally, but there's something called turning the corner. So you can literally reset yourself to a past age, keeping your memory intact. You can choose to turn the corner, or you may choose to not turn the corner and just keep aging. But if you choose to turn the corner, you will decide what age you want to go back to. So if you want to go back to 20, you will revert back to 20. You will look like you're 20 years of age. You would you will look like you're 20 years of age. However, all your memories, all your knowledge, everything that you had at 60 will still be in you, right? So that's how the world was, the world in the book, right? So another question is, you may choose to ask yourself is, in a world where there's something called turning the corner, where you don't have to age, would you choose to turn the corner? Number one, would you choose to age? Or if you chose to revert to a previous age or to a younger age, what age would that be? That's another question. Another question is a question of, would you like to be a Scythe? Right? Like, they had to do what they had to do, right? Fine. But if push comes to shove and you were chosen to be a Scythe, is that something you would want to do? Number one. Is that something you would be able to do? That's number two. Another question I can ask yourself when you're reading such a book is, how would you choose who to glean? Because those guys were instituted to glean people, but they were not given any standard set of rules around which to glean people. It was up to their discretion. However, there were certain things that had to be met. First of all, they shouldn't have to show bias against or towards any race or any tribe, things like that. However, it was still up to them. Another question you need to ask yourself is, if you were given the task of gleaning people, who would you glean? Right? How would you choose people to glean? First of all, how would you choose them? Then secondly, how would you actually glean them? Oh my god, this is such a morbid topic. Fine, but that's the thing about dystopian fiction. Like, these things are not happening now. It's not possible now, but it's another world. It's another world where, when you're reading this book, I mean, you can just read this book and not even ask yourself these questions. You may just be reading and but I feel like these things kind of question you, nothing too deep, question you about what you would do if you were in that alternate world. You think you're such a great person, right? But what if that was the rule? How would you do that? Would you do that? How often would you do that? Like, it's just crazy. Anyway, that was Sky. That was Sky. And those are the things that, as I was reading, I was like, that's weird. Like, that is really interesting. So anyway, this is just me yapping and rambling on about this book. There is a sequel to the book, and I think I forgot to ask them if they had it. Oh no, should I go? Yeah, I would have loved to get it if they had it, but yeah, I think I would actually message them on IG and ask them instead of going all the way back to the bookstore. So ladies and gentlemen, that's just my little rambling about dystopian fiction and why I like them, and yeah, all of that. But if you have any good movies, okay, let me give you an example of dystopian fiction. Hunger Games is dystopian fiction. Divergent is dystopian fiction. What else? Maze Runner is dystopian fiction. If you like those kind of genres, if you like those kind of movies, then I'm sure you will like dystopian fiction. So that's just an example. So yes, so if you're a fan of dystopian fiction, please let me know. I want to get into it. I want to start stocking up on those kind of books. It's interesting because I have a lot of books, and the books I've been reading prior to now were like really deep, serious books, motivational books, self-development books, professional development books, those kind of books. But I went into fiction late last year, around December, early this year, January, to sort of like cleanse my palate, because it felt like the books I was reading were too serious. Like, relax. So I just wanted to cleanse my palate with a bit of romance and all of that. And I did a lot of romance, like late last year, early this year. Then I was like, oh, this book, I stumbled across it on Instagram. It was a book recommendation. I got it and I liked it. Book recommendations are quite tricky because it's very, very subjective. I picked the book off a recommendation, Project Hail Mary, and honestly I did not like the book at all. I had to literally force myself to finish it, because I'm one of those people that I like to finish things I start. I like to finish books that I start, right? So I just had to finish it. That's the only thing. I did not like the book at all. Meanwhile, people are online raving about the book, raving, and I'm wondering, like, is this the same book that I read? So that's not about book recommendations. So my thing now is this type of book. So if you have any recommendations around this kind of books, this kind of storylines, please let me know. Send it to me via message or just comment it so that I can get on them. Anyway, this is my, that's it. Bye. Mwah.